You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. Today we talk about F1 travel and deliver some breaking news. So we'll be talking to the founder of r/GrandPrixTravel, Adam Rosales. And of course, we'll have me and Matt here talking about some of the breaking news. Ocon selfishly decided to announce that he was escaping Alpine mere moments after we clicked publish on our Sunday episode, and there's been updates on the Sergio Perez contract situation, and we can guess and infer what that means for Carlos Sainz, and maybe even try to complete the 2025 grid. But first, I'll remind you, we are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind permission of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I'm joined excitingly in the shed by Matt Trumpets. Hello, Matt.
3 drivers, 2 seats.
3 drivers, 2 seats. So your intro is to talk about Visa Cash App driver situation.
Yeah, just the Red Bull situation in general, because that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay, fine. And someone who's not going to ruin the intro is our MotoGP panelist and F1 travel expert, Adam Rosales. Hello, Adam.
Hey, you're not going to ruin my intro, but you'll stumble it just a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. Good. Welcome to the show, Adam. You've been a MotoGP expert on the MotoGP podcast under the guise and guile and leadership of Kyle Power, but first time on the F1 pod. And I'm going to ask you, before we go to the breaking news, just tell us a little bit about your travel subreddit, because you're going to help us travel the world with F1.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I was kind of planning to travel to a bunch of different races, and I just wanted a place to talk about it. There wasn't really an established community to talk to people, to share ideas like, hey, I'm going to go to Suzuka next year. How do I get there? And so I just kind of started a subreddit one summer break between races, and it just kind of took off. We just hit 26,000 members a couple of days ago, and a pretty good community. We do meetups at all the different races all over the world. I've met a lot of people. I've been to a bunch of races, and it's a good time. And I just like to share some knowledge and be helpful to the community.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit nervous of sharing too much knowledge, because I've been tapping you up for a while now, and our Miami trip was made, possible and a lot cheaper by you. So I was kind of thinking maybe we don't share, Adam, or maybe we at least wait till after Miami.
Yeah, I'm not really in it it's just a hobby for me. I'm not in it to try to keep it all to myself. I want people to have some good experiences, share some positivity, and just have a good time.
This is this classic. You see your favorite local restaurant get written up in the big city newspaper with a 5.5-star review going, you must go there immediately all the time. And you're just like, there it goes.
And that's kind of what COTA has turned into. It's gone crazy. I remember the days before Drive to Survive, where the crowd, about 2017, 2016, you can actually walk around and explore. And nowadays, it's shoulder to shoulder in a lot of areas. But in contrast to that, I was at Bahrain this year, which felt like COTA back 10 years ago. It was great. There was a lot of shoulder room.
See, that's the thing, because I nearly, I had to go to Miami. I had stuff out there. So you look at the ticket prices and you go, well, can I afford that headline price of whatever it was? It was ridiculous, the tickets that were left. But you were able to kind of show me some tips and tricks. And then something that's interested me are, which are the tracks that are left that people don't go to? What are some of the hidden secrets, and can we give that away? And to be fair, Formula One as a thing to be into, that used to be the special hidden secret as well. You couldn't find an F1 fan on the street, but now if I walk around in my Williams t-shirt or my McLaren t-shirt, because I flip-flop with the wind, people will come up to you and go, oh yeah, good weekend for such and such thing. Oh, you're a Williams fan. Oh, I'm loving the F1 at the moment. So this has become the local restaurant that now is crowded and we can't get a table at. But before we go into the travel, let's talk about some of the news. Big Dirty News. Okay, so the contract news, the big contract news, I suppose, is that Esteban Ocon is confirmed to be leaving Alpine, and we thought that might be it for the week, but actually we get the rather surprising news that Sergio Perez has signed not just a 1-year contract, but a 2-year contract, and it has left most of social media and our panel kind of shocked and surprised. And almost nobody thinks that this is the right decision. And this is on a panel, I think, with 2 Perez fans here. Adam, I think it's not a good decision for Red Bull. And as a Perez fan, I don't think it's a good decision for Perez. Where do you stand?
I think it's a fantastic decision. And I mean, I say that a little tongue in cheek. I think it's more unexpected. I love it, and I thought that this was going to be his last year, and so I've gone in with the mentality of every year this is his last year, and so I haven't gone in with a lot of expectations, but I think he brings a lot of positivity to the sport from Mexico and South America, and it's really surprising. I was at Suzuka this year, and that was the most fans I've seen for Sergio Perez outside of Mexico or Austin. It was bonkers how many people support him all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely huge fan base, and it's kind of almost unconditional love, isn't it, for Perez? So he's got that kind of hero status, and it won't diminish. So I was having an argument online with a top pundit who says that actually Perez is doing better than we're giving him credit for this season. And it's only the last couple of... Yeah, Matt's shaking his head. I agree with you. So we can have a bit of an argument about this. I think this has been absolutely the worst season or start of a season in his Red Bull career. And the argument that got thrown at me was, well, what about the podiums at the start of the year? Well, it was podiums where your teammate was 20, 30 seconds down the road. I can't, as a fan, consider that a victory and go, yay, Perez got a podium. No, with Formula One, it's always about how you're doing against your teammate, and your teammate's 20, 30 seconds down the road. And when Verstappen had a DNF, Perez wasn't there to clean up. So look, don't come at me. I am a Perez fan. I'm more critical of the drivers that I like. But this has been a terrible season for Perez. And it's really hard to find the justification for a 2-year deal.
Okay, so I'm going to argue with you a little bit. I don't think it's a terrible season for Perez. I just think it's where he is. I think he's doing a good job. But I think he has found in this car, in this team, kind of his ceiling. And I know on Sunday, I don't know, we didn't wind up referencing it, but there was a table that Mark Hughes worked out of the gaps in qualifying between teammates. Same session, no weather or anything else like that between it. And the bottom of that table was Perez versus Verstappen. Max gets so much more out of that car than he does. But the car itself is so dominant. Right now, in the constructors, it's not making that much of a difference. It might in the future. So there's 2 different conclusions we can draw from this choice. One, Red Bull aren't concerned that much about the constructors, which Spanners, I will point out, absolutely fits with your general point of the constructors really doesn't matter that much. Or 2, this is perhaps a long drawn out consequence of the war between Marco, who wanted Perez gone, and Horner, who perhaps didn't.
Actually, winning the constructors is a disadvantage. So if you can win the driver title, which is what people care about, but finish, say, 3rd, oh my God, they're tanking the 2nd seat for wind tunnel time. That can't be it. Because if you lose the constructors, you get more wind tunnel time. Oh my... I think this is what's happened.
You may be on it,
Adam.
I think that there's a couple things you guys didn't really touch on Sunday. Was that he's, for the first few races, he was getting P2. I mean, yeah, he was finishing 20 seconds down, but you don't know what the strategy was for him to maybe be giving Max a free pit stop while at the same time saving some engine for the rest of the season. There's some of those things that we don't really have the insight of, but I mean, the engineering and strategy team does. And I feel like it's part of the plan where they drive to a target, but we'll Yeah, it's hard to tell.
So if they're happy with him and I'm not, are you suggesting that they might know more about what they're using him for and what his performance is than me sat here in a shed? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
Essentially, yes, but I'm trying to be nice about it, and also in a way where we can speculate just enough.
Okay, but
in a positive way.
All right. So we're sitting in a pub together, which is virtually what this is. Both Perez fans. You're happy with what's going on. You're happy with his performance, and you're happy to defend it. I personally have been devastated with the performance because I'm only happy for Perez if he can at least take the fight to Verstappen. And for the first couple of seasons, he'd have these little runs where he looked like he was going to challenge. So even, was it last season, 2023? It wasn't until Miami where Verstappen seemed to flick a switch and Perez couldn't keep it on track. So he'd messed up in qualifying on the track before. I think it could have been the Australian Grand Prix, and made a couple of mistakes. And then Verstappen found his form, found the car to his liking, and then just absolutely destroyed Perez at Miami. And he didn't look back from that. But if you look at the seasons before as well, he had little runs, won Monaco, had these periods where you go, could this be a period where the car is suiting him and it's going to be a chance? And that would make me happy if there's a chance for him to challenge. But I didn't want him to become Eddie Irvine, Rubens Barrichello, Massa to Vettel, Bottas to Hamilton. I didn't want that. I'm not happy and satisfied with that. Or am I just asking too much?
I feel that your expectations are here, and you need to kind of bring them down just a little bit. And a little bit more realistic about I definitely want to see him win, and I want to see more pole positions. But I mean, he's going up against Max Verstappen. Look at what the most recent example is, Valtteri Bottas, and he did get a few wins, and he was closer in with race pace and things like that. But every now and then, you could tell the team strategy was there, preventing that pace or capping his pace.
When was I happiest as a Perez fan, Matt? And as an Ocon fan, I watched the 2017 Canadian Grand Prix today. I watched it. It was just happened to be on Sky. And that was Perez and Ocon. Basically, Ocon had some pace on a different tyre strategy, and they were telling Perez to let him by. And he was like, no. Well, how about we let him through to attack Ricciardo for the podium place? And if it doesn't work, we'll swap it back. And Perez is just, no. But he was a fighter in that midfield, for Racing Point, for Force India. 9 podiums, race victories. And he was a lion in the midfield. And now it seems like he's completely settled. How old is he? 34? He's happy. You're happy. Red Bull's happy. And I'm the only one who's not happy. Matt, why aren't I happy, Matt?
You're not happy for the same reason that I think most fans aren't happy. The fight between the Red Bull teammates is not close enough. I referenced that chart Mark Hughes did in the race, and the top two are under a tenth apart. The next 2 or 3 are a tenth there or thereabouts. He's far outside of Max's performance, and all right, so that's an average. But even in the past, as you mentioned, he sort of had this street circuit champion vibe on a street circuit. He would be close. He's not as close. There's no real competition between him and Max. And without that, what you are missing that. Like, yeah, he'll come 3rd or 5th or occasionally 2nd, but you are missing that hope, those hopes and dreams. He's in a race-winning car. He's in a championship-winning car. And he's nowhere close to converting it, even at the same rate as Bottas did in Mercedes.
So it really doesn't matter where you are throughout the season, as long as your finishing position is good enough. And I just want to remind you, last year he got P2 in the championship. And like the great Vin Diesel once said, it doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile, winning is winning. In this case, it's P2, but that cements your championship status and gets you paid.
Yeah, will he finish P2? I don't know if he will this year. I don't think Red Bull cares where he finishes as long as he doesn't get in Max's way. And I think this is what Spanners is responding to. They've signed him because they want to keep Max happy, because they didn't want him wandering off to Mercedes or, wherever, Ferrari, when Hamilton retires. They're like, let's give you someone that's not a real challenge, who might have some useful engineering insight from time to time. and that we can count on to maybe finish in the top 10 most of the races.
So, or someone with a large fan base, because that's important as well. That's a consideration. Oh, by the way, I now have Sergio Perez socks. Such a dumb piece of merch because no one can see them. But that was a gift, and I'm very grateful to. And I have been wearing them. I know I'm wearing them, and that's the most important thing. They've got a driver who is possibly politically not any trouble. Maybe he's nice around the factory. And as somebody suggested, Ed in the patron chat, patreon.com/missapex, suggesting that maybe he gives good technical feedback. Maybe he's playing those kind of roles in the team.
The only argument I can really make here, one, he's an extremely known quantity, which just makes it simpler for the team. And two, ever since he gave up on this, I must run the same setup as Max, and just said to the team, okay, just make me as fast as you can, it seems like those problems have gone away. The issue is, I think, from a viewing point of view, or if you're a fan of Perez to the point where you want to see him win a race occasionally or be competitive occasionally, is this solution has just put him that much farther back that we don't really see that anymore.
Okay, so from Red Bull's point of view as well, I think you only sign Perez if your plan is Max Verstappen. So let's not forget there was very real speculation that Verstappen would be looking for an exit, with the Ford dying on the dynamo and Mercedes being touted to be having the engine revolution akin to 2014. So that kind of advantage. But then if you're trying to attract Max Verstappen, I think you would be telling the entire world and leaking to the entire world that your 2026 engine is definitely going to be a 2014 clone as far as the advantage goes. So that bit of media spin could be a lie as well. Don't tell Alex Albon, because I think he's based his re-signing for Williams on that. So there's a lot of things going on in the background to try and get Verstappen over to Mercedes. I believe that would have been at some point a real, genuine, plausible possibility. But if they've now signed a number 2 driver who, let's be fair, isn't getting top results, i.e. isn't challenging Max Verstappen, and might well this season be a hindrance in the Constructors' Championship, you have to take that as a sign that Verstappen is happy with Perez being there. Presumably Perez is happy with the terms of any contract. So I think he gets money for signing that contract as well. So it's still quite a good job, whether or not you're winning or not.
Sorry, I just suddenly thought those terms include not bending it on purpose at Monaco.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
I shouldn't bring that up, should I?
I was there and I loved it.
Well, look, imagine if that hadn't have happened. If that hadn't have happened at Monaco, that would have been, like, without doubt, the least interesting Grand Prix ever. So we should thank Magnussen and Perez for being gladiators there at the back. So to me, that puts to bed any speculation of Max Verstappen going anywhere. They are now going to have a solid pairing into the new regulation set. So maybe it's not all as bad as they've made out. So maybe they've stopped the Ford engine from dying and blowing up every 5 minutes, and they're feeling positive. But even if they're going to start at a slight disadvantage for Mercedes, you still have this year's championship and next year's championship. So that was a big reason for the Verstappens to swallow their pride, swallow their angst, and for everybody to make a peace treaty. So in Red Bull, Matt, do we think there's been kind of a, hey, let's calm it down. We're all grown-ups. We're all businessmen.
Well, I mean, I think that could be an argument, or it could also be an argument that it was fairly widely reported that Marco wasn't super in favor of Perez continuing and wanted, I think, Tsunoda to move up. And now that hasn't happened. So it could also still be a big boss fight going on, and just someone's way of showing another someone who's really in charge here.
So Red Bull could have attracted the likes of Carlos Sainz, who we'll talk about next. They could have promoted from within. Tsunoda could go in there and could do a job. Daniel Ricciardo would happily have gone in there. And I think at this stage in his career, I think Daniel Ricciardo would happily have accepted a sort of a vague number 2 role if you didn't go on about it too much. But if it was sort of broadly understood that it was a supporting role and it's a last big payday and he's for Red Bull and you're going to get some podiums and you're going to go and do more disgusting drinking out of your shoe podium celebrations, which I saw on that 2017 replay, I think Ricciardo would have been up for that. So now that's dead. So Tsunoda's not going to Red Bull. So Tsunoda's career as a Red Bull junior is effectively dead. And Joe was talking about a little bit. Joe Sayward was talking a little bit about Audi perhaps being interested in Tsunoda, and they don't want to just let Tsunoda go. So are Audi going to come in and buy out that contract possibly? Ricciardo's got to be reaching retirement age. You would think that now he's going to be there to basically be a bit of continuity and partner whoever replaces Tsunoda. And there doesn't seem to be a place for Liam Lawson available next season if they're gonna hold Tsunoda to the rest of his contract. So they had options, and they've gone with Sergio Perez. And that's I just find that fascinating that they've picked that team stability over everything else. They've gone, let's just keep it like this.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And in a lot of ways, it is a difficult to explain choice because you have better performance available. So the only explanation is either it's simply a result of something going on out of our sight, or as you say, they've simply chosen to make sure that Max is happy, because apparently he's happy enough with the current situation, and that they think the stability will ultimately be more important to them as a team than any increase in performance they can get with a different driver.
All right. And so they could have had Carlos Sainz, who possibly could have performed better. Who knows? Carlos Sainz looks to me like he's mucked around Audi and said, no, hang on. I want to see how the Red Bull situation pans out. Hang on. I want to see how the Mercedes situation pans out. And I think both of those have picked other dance partners. And now, if Audi have been talking to Tsunoda, it makes you go, well, for so long it was just Carlos Sainz is our target. And now he's not the sole target. Has he left it too late? Has he now potentially only got Williams as an option? And Williams also have a lot of options, Adam. I think there's a very real chance Carlos Sainz has absolutely fumbled this, and he could be out.
Well, I think that he waited too long, or maybe negotiated a little bit too high. I'm not sure if he negotiated his way out of Mercedes into Williams, or if Williams was kind of just the next opportunity that came up. But I know he's been linked straight to that team, so hopefully he finds a good home there, and I guess would replace Logan Sargent since Albon is cemented in place for the next few years.
Yeah, I know. Sargent's gone. I think poor James Vowles has given that away accidentally on more than one occasion, despite trying.
Or Logie Bear.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think the dream might end, but I think for a pay driver, your 2 seasons in F1 is the norm. So if you are just out and out going, here's cash. Yes, someone in the YouTube, Logan Sargent's not a pay driver, whatever. Yes, he is. So, that's normal. If you put down cash for your seat and you're not beating your teammate, 2 seasons is about right. So I think that's a fair shake. That's his F1 story rounding off and coming to a fair conclusion.
I mean, I would still say it's 3, but I would agree with you in terms of Sargent. I think he was brought into the sport ill-prepared, and I think it has actually messed with him enough. Although it's hard to tell. He still got, does he not still have the broken chassis from Albon? I mean, it's reached a point where whether it's his fault or not, it looks pretty over.
I have a tiny conspiracy theory that has been pointed out a little bit, where I wouldn't be surprised if Mercedes is waiting for Logan for Antonelli to turn 18. They dump him in Logan's seat for Monza to test him whether they want to invest for next season.
Yeah, that was something that came up when we spoke to Joe Sayward as well, wasn't it, Matt? And most people have poo-pooed that. And James Vowles flat out said, no, we're not talking about this season. But that was just after he'd got caught out saying that they'll have some driver news in the next 3 weeks. And that was a couple of weeks ago now. So I think he might have been in panic mode when he was directly asked that. And he went, no, I've got to deny this. So I think Monza is possibly still on.
I don't know. I mean, the thing that he seemed clear about is we're not going to accept Antonelli for half a season and move him on to Mercedes. Either we get him all of next season so we get some benefit, or we're not going to play this game with you because it's not a fair game. And, you know, whether Mercedes can come up with enough cash to make it a fair game to them, I don't know. That would be the only exception. But I don't see, I mean, I'm going to look back and see what happened with Lewis. I don't see Mercedes willing to part with huge bundles of cash, given the current position they're in, which is like, well, yeah, we're better than Aston, aren't we?
I think it might not be cash, but it might be a nice little discount on motors or gearboxes.
Oh yeah, money will exchange hands. I don't buy that Mercedes are like, oh, we would do it, but we're going to have to give them a discount on their engine. Mercedes are fine. They're making a massive profit, and they don't feel the need anymore to outspend the competition. In fact, they can't, which is why they were so on board with a cost cap that makes them less competitive but makes them more money. No? Okay. Good. No argument there. Good. Because that Mercedes were involved in that decision to go to the cost cap. They didn't fight it too hard, did they? Because they're going to make lots of money from it. All right. So I think that I don't want to go back to Ocon. I think we summed that up pretty well. The news that he was leaving wasn't a massive surprise. I think the only thing to say about it is our conversation on Sunday pretty much came to that conclusion anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing to keep in mind was before this incident, he was at the top of the list, supposedly, and this is based on motorsport.com. He's at the top of the list for Haas and close to or also at the top of the list for Audi. So he already had some outs. And the fact they reported it as mutual tends to make me think he has something he's pretty sure of, or else he would have maybe fought harder. On the other hand, maybe he finally learned the lesson Alonso and Piastri did and is on his way to a better place.
Yeah, Matt, you're a fan. You're an Ocon fan. Choose for him. You're now his guardian angel. You're his agent. Where are you putting him? And from a fan point of view, what's going to make you happy? What's going to make you happy to see him doing?
What's going to make me happy is to see him racing. So I think the obvious choice, based on what I've seen reported, would be Haas, partnered with Ollie Behrman, and sadly saying goodbye to Magnussen, which is a bit of a gamble from them because they have two new drivers, but Ocon is pretty experienced, so maybe that comes out in the wash. The interesting one is remembering that supposedly he and Lance Stroll are friends. So could he do a year at Aston as a reserve driver and then take over when Alonso's contract runs out and he and Lance are buddy-buddy?
That's not a bad shout.
If I was Ocon, I would absolutely sign that deal because Aston is a far sight better than Haas right now.
Can I just point out, though, Matt, it's not confirmed that Lance Stroll is going to be at Aston Martin next year. If you look at the official F1 driver lineups for 2025, that is still a blank. And it is every year. It's always a blank. They never just go, it is going to be Lance.
Yeah, but the other shout, and I think this is interesting too, with the speculation about Yuki, if Audi buy Yuki's contract to get him to Audi, meaning that Ocon's not going there and neither is Sainz because Hülkenberg's already there. Be kind of interesting to see him and Ricciardo join forces once more at the now more separate, not junior team, Visa Cash App Grab, which is doing pretty well for itself these days.
And Matt, you and I debated a little bit on WhatsApp a few days ago about my thoughts on Ocon. But I'm kind of honestly more intrigued about who's going to replace Ocon at Alpine. And I've heard some rumor about Zhou Guan Yu going into that seat and a weird relationship with Renault and kind of a Chinese manufacturer of vehicles.
Geely. You're talking about the deal that Renault and Geely have.
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow. Okay. I've not heard that. But again, so no offense to Zhou Guan Yu, that's the correct way around. But that isn't a very ambitious signing. That's a money signing, and that doesn't speak well to the brand. But okay, if they're handing over to Briatore's clutches to make that team move off somewhere and maybe just badges Alpine, then that they're not coming back up, are they? That team's staying where it is.
They're headed to Marussia territory. They're getting rid of all of the I mean, look at who's been out the door. We talked about the engineering side, but look at the drivers they've ditched. They ditched Alonso, they ditched Piastri, They've ditched Ocon. Gasly is supposed to be looking for an exit too. They're literally just going bargain basement, keep the lights barely on till someone comes along and buys the team from us, and then we'll buy it back in 5 years when we think we should have been a works team all along anyway. Start the whole stupid process over again.
I'm not gonna compare it to asset stripping, but I'm clearly heavily implying that. It does sound.
It's a fire sale, right?
Yeah, well, this is what Jess said. It seems like tanking. It almost seems like tactical tanking. And before, just cut off the YouTube comments. Piastri left them. Technically, I would say. So Piastri did that whole because they tried to put him in the lineup, and Piastri did the whole without my permission. Blah, 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 tweet.
Yeah, they didn't get his contract sorted properly. They goofed around. They wasted time. And this would be like, I'm not going to blame Otmar for this. This was the Renault lawyers doing this. And they lost him. Alonso, they refused. They didn't want to spend the money. They messed him about on how long the contract was. He left them. Now the Ocon thing, which even you said is way more 50-50 than they came out and said. And I said at the time, honestly, if I was Ocon and I saw my management do that to me, I would be just done. I would have sat out. I would have said, you know what? No, you don't get me for Canada. Good luck with your rookie.
Yeah.
Because like it was that to me, and I will admit as a musician, this is like a little triggering. But it was just like, it was beyond what any responsible team management should do in a situation like that.
And Ocon's in a good position. So he'll beat Stroll. He'll beat Behrman. He'd probably beat Hulkenberg as well. So as a fan, it's probably, for all you Ocon fan out there, there is probably...
All both of us.
There is probably better times ahead. I was going to divert into what I think of Behrman's future chances, but I think I've got some thoughts on that. I'm still forming them. I don't think I'm as excited as everybody else. I don't know if anyone has any strong Behrman takes.
I don't have... he's exciting for the audience because he showed up and did a halfway decent job. But the caveat I will put out there, which is the same caveat I put out there with any rookie driver, which is you got to see them at a high degradation, a high wear circuit to see how they do with the tires. And it's usually a multi-year learning curve to really get on top of them, even for the best drivers.
And was it Saudi that we saw him? Saudi, right?
Yeah, it was Saudi.
Was that a lower wear track? Because they even gave him softs to start with. So
yeah,
it can't have been a massively high wear track. Okay, good. I think that's enough driver speculation for now. I want to go traveling. Okay, so we're going to talk about F1 travel, and I want to caveat that with I am very aware that this is an incredibly middle-class conversation to talk about which destinations to go off and buy Grand Prix tickets would be best. So from my point of view, I have not been to a lot of Grand Prix. I think I've attended 3 in-person Formula One days. So for me, Formula One has always been a TV sport. I grew up above the breadline, but not an awful lot above the breadline. So it would never have been an option to even go to Silverstone for a Grand Prix for me growing up. So I know that a lot of what we were talking about is out of reach for most people, and it's out of reach for me. I would be lucky, incredibly lucky, as a normal fan to put my family priorities aside, like time alone, but to say to my wife and family, right, I'm going to actually spend a couple of grand on me to go to a Grand Prix. It's likely not going to happen, which is why I want to draft in Adam to see if there's the art of the possible and what we can do. So I want to make sure I am not pitching myself as an expert who flies around the world going to Grand Prix. Now, I may be able to see 2 this year, but both of those have work-related stuff going on, and it's a +0 figure for me to go out there. So that puts me in an incredibly lucky situation if I can pull those things off. But on the normal scope of things, in my life as an adult, no, I have not been able to slap down money for flights, hotels, and Grand Prix tickets. But that's why we're drafting in an expert, Matt. We've got some help. We've got Adam Rosales. Tell us about your subreddit. Again, you did at the beginning. It is r/GrandPrixTravel. And how many Grand Prix a year would you say you get to?
Uh, you talk about the little bit of privilege, and I feel bad
No,
talking
no, no,
about
no, no.
no, well,
Sorry,
some of
sorry.
it sometimes
Yeah.
because I think the last couple of years I've done 6 or 7 per year. But I am lucky where I live in Austin, so one is literally 5 minutes away
Yeah.
from where I'm sitting, and Mexico is only about a 2 hour flight. Canada, it's a little hard to get to,
Well, also,
but
not
yeah.
only do I know that you've worked hard to get to that position as well, but you also made one incredible decision that I didn't make, which was to unburden yourself of procreation. And so, like, as I got to an adult wage, where I might have thought about going to Grand Prix, we got bundled with the little ones, and then another one came along. Oh, nightmare. So look, no lifestyle judging at all. I just wanted to make clear to people that I understood that it's not accessible to every demographic in human society.
Yeah, and that's part of my decision. I've got a bunch of nephews and nieces where I've been an uncle since I was 10. And I've had I've been around a lot of kids, and around enough kids where I don't necessarily want any of my own. And so that's always been kind of a cemented decision in my head so that I can spend a couple grand on myself a
Yeah.
handful of times whenever I can plan for it.
Yeah, and I just want to say, one of the things I like about this segment is you're going to get a better sense of what is affordable, and that traveling to or doing things at a race might be indeed more affordable than you think.
Yeah. So Adam goes about it not in a loads of money, flicking the cash around. Adam goes about it in a what's the most efficient and effective way to go traveling.
Yeah, and the biggest parts, like the biggest expenses, are usually flight if you're going to an overseas race. So you can use an app like Skyscanner or Google Flights, set up alerts for some specific date ranges that would work. And who knows, one day you might get an email that the flight is, instead of being $2,000, it's 600. And so like that's a substantial difference. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah. And I mean, and understand that if you're someone who occasionally has to travel for work, that there are loyalty programs you might be able to take advantage of to help defray the cost. But the thing that I want to bring up, just right now, I'm going to wreck our whole show plan, is discovering how cheap Friday tickets really are. If you can't get to the race, but you want to see cars on track,
right,
you can definitely afford that a lot easier.
So for me, for Europe, yes, it's more affordable for me to hop over to Europe. Seeing the Friday prices, Adam, that's tempting. Like I would go and watch Friday in Paul Ricard, because that's not too far. And I used to do that, for Silverstone. I'd always just look at the Friday tickets because the Friday at a lot of tracks is quite full. It's quite entertaining and very cheap compared to the event. How much was Miami for us? $30?
Miami, yeah, I think if you wait last minute for Miami, you can usually find some for around 50 or less. I would say 50 after the tax and fees that they have. But not every circuit does single day tickets where, like some races in Europe, you get the same barcode for all weekend. And so it's difficult to try to find a single day ticket because you can't just buy somebody's barcode that they're going to use on Sunday. And so there's some caveats to that. And it depends on the circuit. Every circuit is run by a different promoter. And the promoter itself is usually the circuit or, GP Canada, which is kind of a race organizer, but they're also kind of a tourist agent or tourist board in a way. But it really varies by race. But because they're all run by a promoter, it's not F1 that organizes the event. And so they all kind of have their different quirks and some advantages, some disadvantages that can help, drive the weekend in a certain way.
Yeah, and Matt, I mean, we became instant hypocrites, didn't we, with sprint races? So when we're talking about what's good on the Friday and the Saturday, as soon as we're there and they've got a sprint race on the Saturday, we can watch instant convert. all that energy I've gone into saying sprint races are an abomination, and then you get there and you go, oh, good sprint race.
You just had to be there.
Oh, you just had to be there. Jeez.
Yeah. So right off the bat, so the patron chat now in Discord is going absolutely bonkers to ask you questions.
Oh, let's do that. Okay, go on. Yeah.
But before I ask, important question number one is: are there some tracks where it's easier to get there if you don't have a car? I do want to get back to the buying tickets
Definitely.
things. I do want to get back to the buying tickets things. And can you real quickly explain your ticket buying strategy and make some suggestions for people who are willing to go to a place and employ your strategy?
So that is kind of, it varies by race. I don't like doing that, especially if I'm traveling. If I have a flight booked somewhere, I'm usually not going to do that unless it's a circuit like Miami, where they might say they're sold out, but there are always a lot of inventory and it's pretty dependable. But a race like Montreal or Imola, Imola just had a bunch of people get scammed off of tickets from StubHub, because it turns out some people bought children's tickets, and they photoshopped the ticket, which is just a PDF, and sent it as an adult ticket.
Oh,
So these people who
no.
bought StubHub tickets get there, they fly, they take the train, they deal with traffic. It takes a couple hours to get to a Grand Prix typically. They get all the way to the gate, then they get turned away,
Oh,
or they
no.
needed to pay an extra 300 euros to
Oh, my
upgrade to a
goodness.
full adult
So,
ticket.
so Adam, so obviously you're safe if you buy it from the F1 website. No? Oh, no.
Not necessarily. I mean, yes, but that's where a big part of why I started the subreddit is to kind of share the basic knowledge that the promoter puts on the race. The promoter sells tickets.
Ah,
F1 is a third party.
what,
F1 is responsible for
that
TV
is
and getting
key.
cars on the track.
So for COTA, for Circuit of the Americas, if I go to the F1 website, I'm actually like there being a broker for
Yeah.
Circuit of the Americas. So if I
Well,
go directly to the promoter, that's the core.
yeah, so Formula1.com is actually their tickets.formula1.com is actually operated by a company based in Monaco called Platinum Group. They sell
No.
tickets as a third party, meaning they buy the tickets from
The
COTA,
promoter,
for
yeah.
example, and put their own markup, and they make their own margin and then resell it on Formula One website. And
Okay.
yeah, not a lot of people know that. So the cheapest, best way to get tickets for any race is direct from the circuit, direct from the
Okay.
promoter.
Okay. And then when you look at things like StubHub, that's more like an eBay situation or a
Yeah.
Ticketmaster
So
situation.
StubHub is what, so think of it as this way. Direct is from the circuit. Resell or third party is from an official vendor like Formula1.com or P1 Travel, GPT Worldwide. There's a handful of them. I've got a list of this on my subreddit because you also get a lot of scammy ones who it's like, if you Google Montreal Grand Prix and go to the first couple of results, you get a website that tries to look official, but they're not. The official website for Montreal is gpcanada.ca. Not a lot of people know that. And if you Google that, you're going to find, like, I think it's montrealgrandprix.com. There's a lot of similar websites that do that for like
Yeah, I can
Barcelona
see
or
it.
Imola.
It's the top result, Montreal
Yeah.
GrandPrix.com. And why would they be bad?
So they're another third party reseller
Right,
who's
okay.
trying to pretend and advertise their website in a kind of scammy way to make them look like they're the official site when they're not.
Oh, okay.
And
But for legal purposes, they will sell you Grand Prix tickets. You're not suggesting that.
but they're going to be more expensive.
Right.
Because you're not buying direct, you're buying with a markup.
But I think
And
we
so,
did get our Miami tickets from StubHub. So were we
yeah,
were we
and so
lucky?
that's not necessarily. Miami's kind of an outlier. But so that's the next tier. You got your direct, you have your official vendors, and then you've got peer-to-peer is what I like to call it. And that's, like you just said, eBay. That's StubHub, that's SeatGeek, or that's what's the other, Viagogo, which they work. I don't like to tell people, especially new people, to use them because it takes a little bit of experience. Or like you guys, you didn't get your tickets for Miami on Saturday, and so you end up having to call them. And
Oh yeah, they didn't come through. Yeah. But we had a
yeah,
ticket guarantee, but it just took a bit
yeah.
of faff. Yeah.
So I talked to somebody who flew from America to Shanghai for the Grand Prix. They bought their ticket on StubHub. They flew all the way out there, never showed up. They get there, they got their money back, but they couldn't get a replacement ticket. And that I
Oh.
talked to somebody where that happens to just about every race. And it sucks when you fly halfway around the world and that happens. And so yeah, you get your money back, but you're not going to get to do the experience you're trying to you spent all these thousands on, you know? And so I don't like to recommend StubHub unless you kind of have experience or know what you're doing.
Right. So before we move this on, then do you have, or do you do like on your subreddit sort of race recommendations where there's likely to be leftover tickets versus ones where if I'm going to that, you definitely want to have a ticket before you walk out the door and book your plane flight?
I don't necessarily have a list of that. It's usually there's think of the races where everybody wants to go, like Spa. Um,
Yeah.
it's some of those or Mexico's another one that sells out like instantly.
Right.
And the best place to get a ticket is actually through a third party. I wouldn't do peer to peer. I would do third party. Like every year I have to buy it off of P1 travel or F1 destinations, because if you try to buy direct, they're literally sold out in minutes.
Brilliant. This is literally exactly where I wanted to go next, which is what are the hidden gems? What are the, oh yeah, it's not that appealing, but they have a great personality tracks. What's the spanners of the
Miami.
F1 circuit?
So I think it's regional. It depends on there's some outliers where and Matt, you just said Miami. Miami it's a great facility.
I was
It's not
so
a great
surprised.
circuit.
Yeah, I was so surprised that they weren't selling out. So the first year sold out. Second season, I was looking on TV and going, they're claiming a big crowd, but there was loads and loads of empty seats. Now on the Friday at Miami, it was dead. It was pretty empty, but it was cool to be there while it was empty. Saturday a little bit more full, but Sunday it was rammed. It was rammed on Sunday.
Yeah, and it varies by race or by sprint if that's going to be the case. But if you get a race where it's kind of a pain to get to, like Spa, Silverstone, or one of the Italian rounds where people just like to be there and camp, that's where you can get a full crowd all 3 days.
Silverstone's not that much of a pain. People complain so much because no one in England likes traveling. Do you know what you have to do for Silverstone? You have to go to the nearby town of Northampton and take a 20-minute bus in. Like you can park and then take a 20-minute bus in. It's not the end of the world.
And that's pretty typical for most races.
I mean, first of all, there's an inconveniently named town. And second of all, if you should happen to get parking, won't the mud in the parking lot swallow your car anyway?
Yeah.
Silverstone, no, it's not because they do the rugby club. But by the way, just while we're on this, right, I know that Silverstone is a month away, right? And I think this is the right time for me to pull the trigger. By Canada, I'm going to either not have a plan or have a plan for people to come and meet us in Northampton in the evenings around the Grand Prix. I'm not going because Silverstone tickets are £1 million, but it's not too far from where I am. It's a 2-hour drive, so I'm more than happy to go to Northampton, find us just a nice kind of pub that we'll put on. They do like a minimum spend. So as long as you're all drunkards, we'll be okay. We'll have a nice venue. We'll do a bit of podcasting and we'll hang out. So by Canada, be ready to pull the trigger on that. I would love to get a room of 50 or so Missed Apex people and do a live recording. Sorry, Adam. Continue. We are looking for the hidden gems. And one thing I've been thinking is, could we find a track that's unpopular and put together a package for Missed Apex people and say, right, let's all go to Bahrain. Let's all go to Baku. Let's do it as a group.
So I ended up going to Bahrain this year, and I was really surprised how well organized it was.
Is it?
And if
Great
I was
track.
based in Europe, I would probably go annually for the price. It was only about a 6-hour flight from Europe. For me, I had to get to Europe, and then it was about 30 hours of travel. It was a bit upside down for me, but because the race was in the afternoon and I was able to get some sleep, I had a great weekend. But Bahrain is definitely a hidden gem. The tickets are cheap. I had a turn one ticket for about $280, and then I ended up having enough points to stay at a Hilton hotel in Manama. So I had my hotel covered. The most expensive part was the flight, which is from Austin. It was about, I think, $1,100, and so that was the most expensive thing. But once the things everything else started lining up, where I had a hotel covered on points, the race ticket was cheap for a prime spot where all the overtaking was. And another thing about that race is that they have free shuttles from the city. So you can just walk to another hotel or take a taxi for $10, and then you can get to the circuit for free from there. And same thing to come back. You just hop on the same shuttle. They take you back to that same hotel.
So once you've got the main flight out of the way, then it's easy once you get there.
Yeah, and so that varies, or it kind of depends a lot on the city or the destination. What's the nearest airport? And so if you're trying to fly to Europe, a lot of times you're going to connect at Heathrow or Schiphol in Amsterdam. And so that's where Zandvoort is a race that's extremely easy to do. And it's also on the lower end of the price range. And you can usually find a fairly decent flight, or like Matt from New York, you can probably find a pretty cheap flight from JFK to Schiphol. That's nonstop.
So Matt,
did that in December.
Yeah. So for Americans listening, Matt, you're quite good at getting over to Europe inexpensively. It always surprises me how you're able to do that.
Well, years of experience. I take advantage of loyalty programs to help make that affordable for me. And also, I married someone who makes a lot more money than me, so that also helps.
I take advantage of loyalty programs too. I honestly don't like spending money unless I'm getting points back, and so that's kind of a big thing on how I am able to, book some of these flights or kind of justify some of the spend in some weird ways to make sure that I'm either earning status or keeping status with different companies.
So I think with Zandvoort, it sells out. It's packed. So yes. I think it'd be useful to go, right, what's a list of, if you're trying to do this and find the hidden gems, there's a lot of these tracks where, they sell out, so there's no incentive for the price to ever come down. With Miami, we were watching the prices come down, and that's what kind of made that whole trip work. So, there are tracks like Circuit of the Americas, completely packed, I'm guessing, completely sold out. Silverstone will be a complete sellout. Zandvoort, Spa, Monza.
So put a little caveat in Zandvoort, because the organization is incredible, right? But the promoter does something that's a little bit different. And this is a kind of a hidden gem that you're asking about, is that the promoter itself they have the resale platform. So I have tickets for the race this year. And if I'm not going to go, I can sell it on that platform, which is at cost. Is they don't let you change the price, and it's a direct transfer. And so I never see the ticket. I never get it in my email, print a PDF, and it goes straight to the buyer. And Zandvoort is one of the only ones that does that, where they do the platform themselves. And it's really, it sells out directly, and you actually have to enter a lottery to get a ticket during the general sale. But because of that resale platform, you can actually probably go on there right now and get a ticket for this year. I've had people even get them 2 days before. It's one of those things where if you're a little bit flexible in where you sit, it's pretty easy to get a ticket.
I love that, and that's very Dutch in a lot of ways. So I'm going to hit you up with some what I'm going to call the lightning round here, because I do have some questions about, if I'm going to my first Grand Prix, how do I pick out the this or the that? And I want to run you through that. But before we do, let's just answer some simple questions based on what you know. This isn't affirmative 100% always the case. But if I was looking to go to the least expensive Grand Prix overall, and let's say it's not one that I could just drive to, well, except people who can drive to a place.
I think take travel out of it, isn't it?
The cheapest Grand Prix are Hungary. Go to Budapest. You can get a ticket usually for, I think the cheapest grandstands are in the 200s. The top grandstands are in 500s, but general admission is like $80 or 80 euros.
I'm going to comment on each of these as you spit them out. But for Hungaroring, I'd want to be at turn one, or at and then second choice would be turn two. I'm not sure how interesting the rest of the track would be, but they're the main action points, aren't they?
Yeah, turn one, I believe, is around 300 to 350, but from that vantage point, the higher you sit, a lot of it's down a hill, so you can actually see quite a bit.
Is that for Sunday or is that 3-day?
That's a 3-day, most likely.
3-day for 300.
Yeah.
See,
I have a lot of this stuff in my head, and so you can check and find out, but pretty sure
this
the
is
average
missed
price
Apex.
is
I will remind you, accuracy is only
it's not
iffy
required.
at best.
It's a guideline.
Yeah. So the next cheaper ones are usually the Italian rounds for Imola or Monza, but Monza's kind of known for its disorganization. It's a little chaotic.
Italians? No. Italians passionate. They love everything that they do, and I won't say anything
chainsaws
further.
allowed. But yeah.
So Monza, I've heard from people there that it's basically the facility is what lets it down, but they've had they love going to Monza. So when I put it out on Twitter, what's your favorite? Monza came up time and time again.
So the most traffic I get on the subreddit is usually Austin, Montreal, and then Monza. Monza attracts crowds, and ever since the 2022 race, where it was a very bad experience, a lot of people didn't even bother to go on Sunday. They got threatened with their contract renewal, and F1 kind of put some pressure on them to help their organization get better, and it helped. And it's from what I've spoken to a lot of people about 23, and then the experience was a lot better. It's a lot more organized, more fluid. There's some issues with the train, but that's just kind of Italy with crowd organization. But for the most part, it was a lot smoother last year after some of those contract kind of threatening. Matt.
No, I was going to move on because you listed the 3 that get the most traffic on your subreddit. And I think that might tie into my next question, which is if I'm a fan and I want the best fan experience at the track, what would your top recommendations be?
And just check, did we finish the cheapest ones? Did we?
I think so. I think between those, between Hungary and the Italian races, I think those are going to be the cheaper ones.
Okay, so now we're going on to the best. What's the best fan experience?
So the best fan experience, a lot of these, so with ticket price comes more experience. And so you get a race like Coda, where you're going to get big name concerts. Same with Singapore or Abu Dhabi, where like Coda this year, Eminem is headlining. And so tickets are pricey, but you get a real big festival atmosphere. And because of the festival atmosphere, the big crowds, it can make traffic a little bit of a hassle to do. But they do organize some shuttles that make it pretty easy. You just kind of have to spend a little money and put up with it, where you just kind of know what you're getting yourself into. Lower expectations on like you can hop in and hop out. There's no way you're going to do that unless you book a helicopter. And so it's all about setting your expectations on where your fun is going to be. But if I was in America, I would definitely do Coda for the most fun race. If I was in Europe, probably the Red Bull Ring. Oh, sorry, my cat is yelling at me.
That's completely
again
allowed.
Missed Apex traditions in action.
If I was in Europe, either probably the most fun would either be Red Bull Ring or Zandvoort. Zandvoort is super easy to do with by train. I mean, I can fly to Amsterdam, hop on a train to Central, and then every 4 minutes from Amsterdam Central, there's a train.
Oh yeah, in Amsterdam. If you say to anyone like, "How do I get to anywhere in the Netherlands?" They go, "Oh, that's simple. You just you hop on your bicycle and you just go past the windmills and you're there." And so they're all over that kind of stuff. You know, those European countries. Britain not so much.
Zandvoort's also just a party. Like the last year, there was a ton of red flags. And I think my beer was probably about half water because of the rain. It was raining every 10 minutes for about 5 minutes straight. And
so it was basically sunny for the Netherlands.
Yeah, but every time that there was a red flag, the music starts playing and it just turns into a festival. But because it's easy to get to and the Zandvoort town is right there, I mean, it's fun. There's a great experience all weekend.
Yeah, so just for context for non-Europeans, most of the Netherlands and particularly Holland is meant to be underwater. Like that is a sunken part of Europe that they just rescued, and they went no. They stubbornly refused to be drowned and pumped the water out. So that's reclaimed land. So the flares though at Zandvoort would put me off. Just the fact that the flares just seem part of the culture of it. No, thank you.
Last year they got a lot better after was it 2022 when some guy threw it on track. But they were a lot better last year. I don't think they really got lit until after the race. But yeah, it does get a little gnarly with that.
So we're still on best fan experiences for the Austrian Grand Prix. I think that looks like a kind of once in the lifetime destination. Kind of. Have you been to?
Yeah, I went last year.
Oh,
and
you've been to all of them.
That's the most beautiful circuit I've been to. It's such a great part of the world. I booked a train from Vienna to Graz where I was staying, and it was it just looks like a screensaver, just taking a train through the mountains. It was just beautiful.
Don't want to hate you, but you're making it hard, Adam.
Yeah, and it's the most beautiful circuit. I mean, the weather was perfect. The organization has done really well. You can get there by train, or I ended up booking. The circuit organizes a regional bus system where I stayed in Graz, which is about an hour drive, but the bus picked me up about 2 blocks from where I was staying in the center of the city, and it's mindless. I just hop on the bus. They take me to the track. So I fell asleep for a bit, ate some food, and I get there and have the day at the track. Then when I leave, I go back to the same bus and I'm back 2 blocks from my Airbnb. And so Red Bull Ring is really organized. They actually also have free parking if you drive, and they're right off a couple of motorways. And if you arrive by train, you can take the train to Niddlefield Station, and from there, there's a shuttle bus that's free. That's basically a revolving door of buses where you're not really going to wait.
America's weird, by the way, for that kind of transport. Like, you can't walk anywhere. I couldn't believe it. Like, you literally can't walk in some places. And they had an exclusion zone for Ubers around the Miami track. I don't think I told this story, but I had to leave early to set up for our event. So I left after the sprint race, didn't watch qualifying, ordered my Uber, and then the pickup point goes to the edge of the exclusion zone, which was far. It was far, but I thought, okay, I can run. I can just get into a nice 3/4 pace and just jog down to this I'll be sweaty, but I'll apologize. I'll get in the back with the window down, and I just ran. And then 3 bicycle cops kind of went up to me because it's quite suspicious. I'm running from a major sporting event in America with my complexion. And they were very nice, though. As soon as they heard my accent, they were like, oh, do you follow like Wrexham? You know, the only way is Wrexham, the Ryan Reynolds team's like, no, I'm a Colchester United fan. Obviously, they played Wrexham this season. So I was running along having a chat with 3 bicycle cops in Florida. But we paid more for the parking than we did for the tickets. Especially on the Friday, and then you have these scammers trying to bring you in on the bicycles, and they charged something like £100 or £15 per person per minute.
It was like was it 50?
No, so the total thing
they offered me, I think, for 150.
Yeah,
it was two of us
for like a 20-minute or for a 15-minute cycle to the stadium. So that last little bit from where you're staying to the track is actually like a vital part of the Grand Prix experience. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to invite our patrons. Thank you by the way, I don't know why we've had such a massive uptick in patron support in May and June. I'm stunned and super, super grateful. I don't know what it is about the messaging, but I wish I knew. I wish I could put it in a bottle, but people have been supporting us at patreon.com/missedapex. It's our biggest raise in patrons in a couple of years. So I'm super, super, super grateful. You'll get an ad-free feed, which you can now link to your Spotify, by the way. So if you sign in on your Spotify account in the Patreon homepage, you can then search for Missed Apex patron feed, and then it will be there as part of your Spotify account. Also, you can link it to your Discord account and join us in our Discord. And we do extra content, not this weekend, but before a lot of race weekends on a Friday, which is a lot more casual. Patreon.com/Missed Apex. So patrons, fire some quick fire questions at Adam. But my last question for you is, how do you go about selecting your tickets? So general admission versus the various amounts of grandstand options versus, do you ever do anything a little fancy, Adam? Do you ever treat yourself to something a little fancy?
So I can I'm going to answer in that order. Grandstands are usually the best thing to do. You're going to get the best vantage points the higher you sit. Traditional concert tickets, things like that, your instinct is to be up front. But for Grand Prix, you want to be further back in the grandstand so you get a higher vantage point. You can see a little bit more. You can usually see a handful of corners. Or if the circuit is like Spa, some areas you're only going to see one corner where it's just huge. But grandstands are usually the place to be. I like to be, lately I've been going to turn 1 at most circuits, like Bahrain, or I went to Suzuka this year, which Suzuka that's where I would say if you're in Asia, that race is fun. It's a traditional circuit. It's very organized.
It looks like they have a festival of motorsport, it looks like.
It's fantastic. It's such a good time. But grandstands are usually the way to go. The most expensive is typically going to be across the pit lane. And that's kind of why it's a great experience to be across pit lane. You get the pre-race festivities, you get to see people see drivers, see celebrities with your eyes. But I like to be turn one or at the end of a straight, kind of where there's more overtaking and more on track action, or at a place where you can see a handful of corners.
So I would always have said I would not have wanted to see the action on the straight. So it wouldn't have even occurred to me to do that. But that was a decision taken by you and Christina, and you pulled the trigger on it. And so this is when our tickets got cancelled, and we had to then accept. They gave us a list. I think it was StubHub. They said, "Okay, sorry, your tickets got lost. Here's a selection of what's available." So we actually got better tickets on the start-finish straight, and that was the first time I've seen a Grand Prix grid pull away. So lights out and away they go, and you go, that's actually a magical thing to see in real life. And then looked off to the left and we saw the whole kerfuffle with Norris getting taken out by the dive bombs. And then for the rest of the race, like the first few laps of them roaring past at racing speed, you go, oh, that's amazing. But then after that, it's pretty dull. It's pretty dull after that, and you are just watching it on the screen. So that's a bit of a payoff. I wouldn't have chosen those tickets.
Yeah, but then we also got to see the cars get completely disassembled directly across from us between the sprint race and the qualifying. And I'm just going to put one more shout out. One thing that Adam did do for us is he hooked us up with the list of seats that were shaded the whole time we were going to be there. So go.
How did you know, Adam, which seats were in shade or not?
Whenever I was shopping for tickets, I kind of looked. Certain maps you can see where the piers are for the shade. But thanks to my friend Jacob. He's a good friend that I met in Vegas at that race. We hung out. Then I kind of accidentally convinced him to fly to Miami. I picked him up the morning of the race at the airport, and then took him back to the airport after the race. And so, but he came up with that guide. I screenshotted it and sent it to you because him and I had been talking back and forth trying to figure out what tickets to get. And so he was bored one day and got enough time to put that little guide together. And it definitely helped a few people out.
There's one thing here that as men, we are neglecting, and thank you very much to one of our patrons who has said, I need a track where I won't have to walk too much. There's a good commute that's safe for women, and I can have a roof over my head. So I really wanted Christina to be on this segment because she travels as much as you do, Adam. But ironically, she's traveling to Montreal for the Montreal Grand Prix. Yeah. She has a travel group where, not hers, but that she uses that is specifically aimed at women. So I'm going to message her now and see if I can get a link to that in the show notes, Maria. So they look at all those issues that ugly brutes like us don't have to think about, but it is really important. Plus they're a community of women all going together and all having the same considerations and hanging out together as well. So I think we'll get Christina to talk about that on a separate occasion. So picking seats.
There's one called Grid Click that's fairly popular.
Okay.
Yeah, click with a Q, Q-U-E. And so one other thing about that is that I usually, we have a group chat for every race, and I always encourage solo travelers, even if they don't comment on it, to just look at it and just have it within reach, because if something goes wrong, you need some help, there's always somebody within reach. And the group chats that I help organize, or the meetups, we do a lot of meetups on race weekends. We tend to do them on earlier in the weekend, like a Thursday or a Friday, so that you could potentially have friends throughout the weekend that you either hang out with, or they're nearby, or you meet up between sessions. Things like that can definitely help. And with transport, I mean, there's definitely issues. There's been issues, but ever since it became public, I've noticed way less of them. It did get amplified quite a bit. I'm not in a position to say that it was amplified out of proportion, but it did get amplified in a certain way towards certain teams or certain crowds. And I mean, my wife travels a lot with me, and she didn't really notice a lot of those types of experiences during that time. And I've met a lot of solo travelers who were women who travel by themselves, and a lot of people get scared of Zandvoort, but I've met plenty of women that have.
Okay. But to be clear, time. That is not to minimize the reported experiences of people who've had issues there. I do like, though, those seats where you can see a lot of corners and a lot of racing. So yes. The experience of watching the is one thing, and it is incredible. And I love watching the cars. A couple of times I've seen the cars going through the Maggots and Beckett's complex at Silverstone, and the change of direction is just insane. You can't believe they have that much power, rocket past you, and then navigate through those corners, which is it's unreal. But for a race day, I would always want to be in Sector 1 of Silverstone, where I was in a grandstand quite high up. You can see them just coming around the first corner, and then you've got all that action until they go down the Wellington Straight, and you've got overtakes. You can see the cars being strained under braking, under turning. You're hearing the downshifts squealing on the wheels, and that can be as exciting as the meow. So I suppose that's why a whole weekend is good, so you can experience a range.
Yeah, and one of the big things about like grandstand tickets is being able to see a couple corners, is try to get an idea of elevation, and that's where it's kind of good to play or drive on a sim, as they say, and you get a good idea of the way the circuit elevation is, and try to take a look at grandstands. You can even hop in the F1 game because the grandstands are full in there, and that's where circuits with elevation is where general admission is good. I wouldn't necessarily get general admission at a place like Montreal, for example, because it's flat. There's not a lot of places that are elevated or TV screens where you can see. But if you could get a grandstand ticket from Montreal, it's amazing. That's one of the best races.
I cannot watch a Grand Prix through a catch fence. It ruins the whole experience for me. And a lot of the GA is catch fence. And I've had that horrible experience at Silverstone, where I thought I was on my own. I thought I'd got myself a great spot to watch the race from. There was like a bar in front of me, and there was people sitting on the ground in front of that bar. And it was like a bar. It was like a terrace bar, like a football terrace. If you've ever been to a football ground in England in the 90s, which I now realise is a bit niche. As the cars came out on a formation lap, everyone went, okay, then. They stood up in front of me, and I thought if that wasn't bad enough, they then reached behind them and did like a tricep dip and then sat themselves on what I thought was my viewing platform. And then I think this was 2013, you couldn't do it now, but I had to run to the ticket office and go, is there a grandstand ticket left in this area? And I had to last minute pay 89 quid to go up. But that viewing position at Farm, watching them coming into turn 2, 3 and out down towards Wellington Straight was amazing. That has put me off general admission. And when we were in Miami watching the Porsche Super Cup, we were meant to be finding Matt's wife, but I was being very unhelpful by running off and trying to watch the Porsches, but through the catch fence just ruins the experience completely.
Yeah, so at Circuit of the Americas, I always do general admission there. That's one of the best general admissions where there's a hill around the perimeter of the track essentially, and so the general admission there is great. You don't have the catch fence in your way. You're a little further away from the track, but the view is great, and there's usually a screen nearby. And so it varies by track whether you want general admission or not, or whether it's worth settling on general admission. But definitely do it only at circuits with elevation.
So I do, like, for example, Adam, Red Racer Books, who hosted us at Miami, he's going to be at Circuit of the Americas. And I think we are going to be as well, very early stages, but I think we might be at the Circuit of the Americas doing a Missed Apex event and doing some other stuff that I cannot disclose, and another American date. So everything's kind of moving fast in Missed Apex world at the moment. But if you don't have a big screen, you're dead in the water from actually following the race point of view. But I know a lot of people like Adam who are going there who are going there and saying general admission is fine. Circuit of the Americas, totally happy with it.
Yeah, and it's usually at the circuit's elevation. And there's ways where you can have the audio from the F1 timing app streaming for commentary if you're not near a screen. It's delayed, but it makes a difference. And also just looking at the timing. But you can also use BBC 5 Radio Live, I believe.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, there's a few different apps that can make a big difference, because a lot of times your phone struggles for service in crowds that big. But there's ways. And another thing is to maybe turn off 5G and use LTE on your phone. That could sometimes help get you an audio signal.
What's LTE, Uncle Adam?
Yeah, exactly.
2G, is that 2G? Is that 2G?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I wanted to circle back a little bit on the tickets. Is the other tier is hospitality. And there's hospitality options. There's a lot of tour packages with F1 experiences and things like that. But then there's some races like Monaco where you just have to be there. But I was able to book a yacht for free practice on Friday, substantially less. It's still expensive.
Sorry, that just rolled past me. What did you just say?
I booked a yacht for my wife and I. So my wife and I, she always wanted to go. Well, she said if we ever go to Monaco,
It was his wife's fault.
we can go if we watch from a boat. And so I found a company called Senate Grand Prix, and I had actually booked it for 2020, but then the world kind of fell apart. And so they actually don't have a refund policy. So I had to roll over the credits. And so rolled it over to 21, and then they weren't allowing tourists around that time. And so I rolled it to 22. And in 2022, we ended up watching free practice from a yacht right at Tebet Corner.
God. But it wasn't, there must have been other people on the yacht.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's not a crazy amount. It was probably around 20 to 25 people. It was one of the smaller boats.
Okay. It wasn't a very good. It wasn't a very good yacht, Adam. You don't.
Did they make you wear a life preserver? It was that small.
No, you take a little like dinghy.
So is it like by the swimming pool section or like to back?
Yeah, it was right at Tebet Corner where they come around in front of the big grandstand of the harbor. It was incredible. It was I think about €1,000 per person. But there was a private like live on the boat chef and a whole catering crew. And as soon as I got on the boat, I mean, it was a trade with
you're saving money. You're saving money then, aren't you? So, I mean, can you afford not to go on a yacht? That's the real question.
Yeah, if you bought your own yacht, it would be way more expensive.
And that was a planned big trip that we had planned for a few years. And that was, like I said, one of the caveats where...
You don't have to justify yourself here.
Yeah. But there's options to do that where you don't need to commit to a full weekend. If you do the full weekend on that boat, it's like $7,000 a person. And you can do Friday to have kind of this crazy once in a lifetime experience and get a taste of it, which is awesome. Like I don't think I'll ever do it again. But if the opportunity comes up, I want to do it again.
But it's like if you're gonna do Monaco, do it on a boat, do it on a yacht. Go on, Matt.
Just got to be there.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna.
So that was the year Bettis won, and I was crying. Okay. Like I had a great time.
That is the worst. You were teasing me about my pronunciation of paella. You just said that's the worst I've ever heard Bottas ever said. That's worse than Matt's bold tires. Okay, well that's great. And so go on, Matt. I was going to wrap up a little bit by this comparison of the different seating options. Me and Brad were gifted. They said, "Oh, you can bring Matt to the Silverstone hospitality." I said, "No, don't even mention it to Matt. Me and Brad are going." But just a Friday in hospitality in the Paddock Club at Silverstone just ruined. It just ruined everything.
Hospitality is cool, but you don't experience seeing the cars. Like it's a different experience if you want to follow the race, and that's why I like doing stuff like that only for practice and not necessarily for the race.
So you do
follow the race
at Silverstone. They've got a separate bar area that is actually right by the pit exit. So you do.
I was going to say you're just jealous because I took my wife to the Formula E VIP experience instead of you.
I would have taken that. Do you have any Paddock Club experience, Adam?
Yes, for Zandvoort last year, I was able to get a paddock tour, which was really cool. I saw most of the drivers as they were going into free practice 3. And then I got into the Champions Club at Coda last year between qualifying and the sprint. And it's a cool experience, but it's hard for me to justify that. It's hard for me to justify the price that they offer because, like you talked about a little while ago, sitting on the straightaway is kind of just, they fly by and that's about it. And so the Champions Club at Coda is at the end of pit, or it's near pit exit. And so the food is good, the environment's good. It's nice to get some shade and AC, but I'd rather be in a crowd or general admission compared to the price of that. But it's a cool experience. And it's another way to kind of, if you're a solo traveler or a solo woman who's kind of skeptical about the crowds, it's a good way to kind of separate yourself from some of the, I'm going to say Neanderthal type
riffraff. Yeah.
I
always say, Matt, those sorts of things are priced to keep you and the likes of you and me out. It's like
125%.
There's a place called Centre Parks in the UK. They have a few venues, and it's just like a country club that you can sort of be at for a week. And you look at the price, you go, the prices are insane. And I say to my wife, no. Those prices are to keep you and me out. That's specific. There's no need for it to be that specific number, except to keep us out.
Yep. And I'll tell that story later at another time. But before we go, Canada, Spain, and Austria and Silverstone are the next races. Have you been to all of those? And can you offer a couple of quick tips to anyone who might already be planning to go there?
So I've been to Montreal a couple times, and it's fantastic. That city really makes that race like a event. They make it a spectacle. It's really easy to get to, similar to Zandvoort, where you take the metro. It's a bit crowded, but it works. It's great, and you take the metro from Montreal onto the island, and it's a bit of a walk. The paths are a little narrow, but it's pretty organized, and it's very crowd friendly. And hopefully there isn't rain, because last year it was raining during qualifying, and it was just raining right into my face.
Yeah, we don't care about the people at the track.
We
want
loved
rain.
that
We want rain.
at home.
It was a little gnarly, and it can get kind of rough, but the city itself makes that event awesome. The whole downtown area just like turns into just streets closed for bars, live music, restaurants. It's a good vibe, and the city really makes that race. I haven't been to Spain. It's on my list to go, but getting to Europe during the summer can get really pricey. But I've heard good things. Spain is supposed to be a great circuit, but the organization's kind of lacking. It's a little bit more of that old school feel.
Spain? No.
And so the best things are avoid driving, book one of the shuttle buses to get out there. There's some people I spoke to who didn't even bother going Sunday because the traffic on Saturday was just that bad.
Can I just, we were talking about managing expectations, okay? Spain and Italy, all of Southern Europe, basically, wonderful places to be. But the attitude to life is, yeah, if it happens, it happens. Yeah, if there's a race, there's a race. If the event goes ahead, it's fine. Just relax. If not, we'll all get some nice food and we'll chill. It's warm. Why are you stressing? So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of attitude there. But no,
yeah.
Spain in general is a wonderful place to visit.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I've been to a couple MotoGP races over there in Valencia, and it's amazing. It's such a good vibe. The crowds are crazy, and they love their motorcycles over there.
Amazing. Right, to be honest, that has gone on way too long, but I was really enjoying that chat. One of the best segments we can do here is one where we are learning brand new things, and our patrons have been enthralled in the live chat the whole way through. So thank you so much, Adam, and please send us feedback for this kind of thing, because I know it's a niche topic, but these are the kind of things we want to be learning stuff and being surprised by these topics every now and then. Where can we go to follow you personally, Adam, to follow your brand, the Rosales brand? What is it?
So I recently made an Instagram because I never really did social media for a while, and I made an Instagram so people can I could give an answer to that, and it's adam.grandprixtravel on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
I made it more so just to kind of highlight some of the stuff with the racing, the races I go to, and we host meetups, and we try to just kind of have a haven for people to
wait.
get together.
I can see Matt is writing down the link to put in the show notes. First, before that, did you include a photo of us at Miami? Is there a photo? Am I included?
I have one.
Is it on there? In that case, yes. Put the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And the subreddit is r/GrandPrixTravel.
Yes. Yeah. And feel free to join the community. And yeah, like at Suzuka, we had about 30 people show up to the meetup. And so even if you're curious about going to a race by yourself, join the community, read some of the posts, and just follow along whenever we post about a meetup, because you're likely to meet some friendly people.
That's it. And Adam and I offline have chatted about if Missed Apex could be integrated into those things as well. And obviously the invite was extended to your subreddit when we went to Miami. So keep a lookout for those things. I think as a community, as a Missed Apex community, we found ourselves an expert here, a genuine expert. So we'll get Adam back on for this specifically and take your specific questions. So we'll definitely do that. Go and follow Matt at MattPT55. Obviously follow me. I'm the best one at Spanners Ready. Until we see you next, which will be the Canadian Grand Prix race review, which at the moment is scheduled for 11:30 p.m. live stream in the UK. And so that will be Matt, Brad and Catman. However, because rain is scheduled, be prepared that there'll be a lot of red flags. So if it does go on, the plan is to stand down the UK guys and just do the review with me and Matt. If it's like past 1 o'clock that we're going to have to do it, then we'll just do me and Matt for that race review, which means it'll be double the length. So wherever we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Let's go traveling. Chat room loves you, Adam. Chat room loves you.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good time.
He's not surprised.
No, I sorry. I meet a lot of people, and I'll read through the comments. It's been scrolling very fast. I need to catch up.
Cheers, Adam. Lots of love.
Yeah.